My name is Emily Carter. I'm 27 years old. And this is the story of how my stepdad tried to erase me after my mom died, and how a DNA report proved why I was the one person he could never control. If you enjoy real-life stories like mine, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, in a small beige house with just me and my mom, Laura. She worked nights as a nurse and still showed up for every school thing that mattered. My dad left when I was 5. Whenever I asked, Mom would say, he wasn't ready to be a father, but we're okay, and keep folding laundry. Eventually I understood that okay really meant, don't push this. Things stayed simple until I was 15 and Mom met Mark. Mark Reynolds worked in what he called real estate investments, which mostly meant loud calls about deals and constant emails. He drove a spotless black SUV and carried himself like he expected the world to cooperate. He made my mom laugh again, brought flowers, paid for repairs, and took us to restaurants she'd never been able to afford. I didn't fully trust him, but it was obvious she felt lighter. About a year later he moved in, and our house changed fast. Family photos vanished from the hallway, replaced by big abstract prints. Our heavy wooden dining table went to the garage and a glass one took its place. The little radio that played Mom's 80s songs got boxed up, replaced by a smart speaker that mostly played Mark's podcasts. Change is good, Mom said. It's a fresh start. By the time I turned 19, Mom and Mark were married. They did a quick courthouse ceremony on a Tuesday, no big dress or church, just a judge and some paperwork. I wore a simple blue dress and held Mom's bouquet while she said, I do. Outside on the sidewalk, Mark wrapped an arm around us and said, we're a real family now. It never felt that way. Mark liked control. He didn't shout, he adjusted. A pause before he answered. A sigh when my shoes were by the door. Questions that sounded casual: what time I'd be home, who was driving, whether I really needed to spend money stacked up until my life felt like a schedule he'd written for me. Money was his favorite subject. Your mom and I are handling the bills now, he told me one evening at the kitchen island. You don't need to stress about the big picture. Just be sure you're contributing where you can. In reality, that meant handing over most of my coffee shop paycheck and watching any chance to save for moving out disappear. When I complained, Mom looked exhausted more than angry. Mark's good with finances, Em. He's helping us get ahead. Just give it some time, okay? I tried to trust him, but it was hard to ignore Mom working extra shifts while he called it a tight month and scrolled vacation listings. Repairs, trips, even pizzas seemed to need his approval. Then Mom got sick. It started as a cough she blamed on winter and hospital air. Then came bruises that didn't make sense, a kind of exhaustion sleep never fixed. And the day she nearly collapsed on our front steps. Blood tests led to more tests, and then a doctor sat us down and said the word, leukemia. That word rearranged the entire landscape of my life. That night changed everything. We sat in a bright exam room while the oncologist explained chemo, timelines, and side effects. Mark did most of the talking: what insurance would cover, how long she could keep working, whether there were payment plans. He sounded less like a husband and more like someone comparing loan options. I held Mom's hand and watched her stare at the floor, nodding like all of this was happening to someone else. Chemo started, and our world shrank to hospital rooms and lab results. I dropped a class, picked up extra shifts, and slept most nights in a stiff chair beside her bed. Mark was around too, always with his laptop open and a slim folder labeled Documents tucked under his arm. One evening, after a long day of treatment, Mom finally drifted off. The hallway lights were dim, machines humming softly. A muted sitcom played on the TV. The vending machines hummed. Your mom and I have been talking, he said quietly. We need to get some things in order, just in case. My stomach tightened. What kind of things? Paperwork, he said. The house, accounts, life insurance, adult stuff. She wants to know everything will be handled responsibly. Handled how? I asked. He gave me a small, careful smile. Don't worry, Emily. I'll take care of everything. I didn't know it then, but that was the moment my mom's illness and Mark's plans quietly merged into one disaster I wasn't supposed to see coming. The weeks that followed blurred into a routine that didn't feel like life so much as survival. Mom's good days became fewer. Her appetite thinned to almost nothing, and the house felt too big without her laugh moving through it. Mark handled everything with an efficiency that felt rehearsed. He scheduled rides, approved medications, ordered equipment, and talked to doctors with the polished calm of someone managing a business meeting. It's better if I'm the point of contact, he told me once. Less confusion. But the more he took over, the more invisible I felt, like grief had turned me into background noise. One night, heavily snowing outside, I found Mom awake in her hospital bed, fragile in a way that made my chest seize. Her hair, once thick and warm brown, had thinned to wisps. Her skin was pale as paper, but her eyes, God, her eyes were still exactly the same. She reached for my hand. You're here late. I didn't want you to be alone. She smiled a tired little smile. You're good like that. Silence stretched between us, soft but heavy. Then she looked toward the doorway, checking the hall like she wanted to be sure we were alone. Emily, if anything happens to me, you need to remember something. My heart dropped. Mom, don't. No, listen. Her fingers tightened around mine. You deserve stability, and love, and a future that feels like your own. Don't let anyone make you feel small. There was a tremor in her voice, fear, but something else too, a warning. Before I could ask what she meant, Mark appeared in the doorway with coffee. She needs rest, he said gently, but there was firmness beneath it. Let her sleep. Mom's gaze held mine for one more second before she closed her eyes. And I felt the shift again, that faint, cold sense that something wasn't right. Mom passed away on a Sunday morning in late April. The sky was painfully blue, the kind of clear, cloudless day she always loved. But I didn't feel the sun. I didn't feel anything except an ache so deep it didn't even have a shape. Mark made the calls, arranged everything. Selected the funeral home, approved the service details, coordinated paperwork. I moved through each day like I was walking underwater. At the funeral, everyone told me the same things. She was so proud of you. She adored you. You were her whole world. But Mark stood stiffly beside the casket, his hand occasionally brushing the polished wood as if checking ownership. He cried once, one single tear he wiped away with the same hand he used to straighten his tie. And then, 3 days later, he asked me to meet him at the dining table. The house felt wrong without Mom in it. Too quiet, too neat, too controlled. He had a folder waiting. Emily, he started, now that everything has settled, we should go over the estate. My heart thudded. Okay. He slid a stack of documents toward me, pages highlighted, tabs color-coded. I've taken care of the house, he said. I'll be maintaining all assets. That includes accounts, insurance, and property. Something inside me went still. What about me? He exhaled like I was being emotional. You'll be fine. You're young, you're independent. Your mother and I discussed this many times. No, we didn't. She didn't want you burdened, he said. You don't need to manage the property or her assets. That's my job. My jaw tightened. What assets? He closed the folder slowly, deliberately. That's not something you need to worry about. A cold wave rolled through my body. Are you saying I get nothing? His expression didn't change. Your mother trusted me to make the right decisions. You should too. I felt my pulse pound in my ears. Did she put that in writing? She didn't have to. Something snapped. Yes, she did. For the first time he hesitated. Just a flicker, but enough. He stood abruptly. I won't have this conversation with you while you're grieving. We'll revisit it when you're thinking clearly. He walked away, leaving the neat stack of documents on the table. I didn't touch them, because something was wrong. Very wrong. 2 days later, I went through Mom's things, the jewelry box she kept hidden in her closet, the cedar chest with old photos, the safe she kept under the bed. I wasn't looking for anything specific, I just needed to feel close to her again. To hear her voice in the things she left behind. But instead, I found a sealed manila envelope taped to the bottom of the safe, my name written in her handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were a notarized letter, a medical authorization form, a small white envelope labeled, "Important if Mark interferes." My breath caught in my throat. The letter was dated 2 months before she died. Her handwriting wobbly but unmistakably hers. Emily, if you're reading this, it means there are things I couldn't say out loud. Things I hoped I would have more time to explain. I sat down on the edge of her bed, legs weak, heart pounding. I need you to know the truth. About me, about Mark, about you. The room tilted. My mother never kept secrets. Not from me. But whatever she wrote next, whatever truth she feared, I knew it was the beginning of the storm I hadn't realized I was walking into, and the thing she feared most was exactly what Mark had been trying to bury. I stared at the letter in my hands, the edges soft from her touch, the ink slightly smudged like she cried while writing it. My throat tightened as I forced myself to keep reading. Emily, you were always the strongest person in the room, even when you didn't know it. And because of that, I kept something from you. Something about your father. My breath hitched. My father. The ghost in every childhood memory. The space Mom never let me fill. I didn't tell you the truth because I wanted to protect you. But if Mark is trying to take control, you need to know. He is not your legal guardian. He never was. And he cannot claim what belongs to you. My pulse hammered. There was more. I had a DNA test done years ago, not because I doubted your father, but because I needed confirmation for legal reasons. I was planning to update my documents. But then Mark intervened. The room went cold. Mark? Intervened in what? My fingers trembled as I unfolded the small white envelope labeled "If Mark interferes." Inside was a single sheet of paper yellowed slightly, with the seal of an accredited genetic testing facility. A DNA report. 2 names. 2 percentages. 2 truths. My biological father was not the man I grew up picturing. And he was definitely not Mark. But the real shock wasn't the identity, it was the legal note attached. My biological father had signed away parental rights decades ago, but had also left something behind. A financial trust, for me. Released upon Mom's death. A trust Mark clearly didn't know I was aware of. I blinked hard, trying to piece together the implications. If a trust existed in my name, if I was the only beneficiary, Mark's control over Mom's estate became complicated. Possibly even invalid. But there was one line in Mom's letter that cut deeper than all the rest. You need to get the updated DNA confirmation. Mark tried to keep me from filing the paperwork, but once you have it, everything changes. You'll understand why he fears you most. Why he fears me, not resents. Not dislikes. Fears. A chill crawled down my spine. What did he know that I didn't? I folded everything carefully, returned it to the envelope, and locked it all in my backpack. Then I drove straight to the clinic listed on the original test. The same building from Mom's old medical files. The receptionist took one look at the paperwork and frowned. We haven't seen records like this in a long time, she said. But yes, we can run the test again. Do you want to file it privately? Privately. That word settled heavy in my chest. Yes, I said. And expedited, she nodded. By the time they drew my blood, my hands had stopped shaking, but only because numbness had taken over. On the drive home, I kept replaying Mom's words. Why would Mark try to interfere in her DNA filing? Why would he care so much about who my biological father was? Unless he already knew. Unless he knew something about the trust. Unless he had planned for years to keep me in the dark. By the time I reached our neighborhood, the sun had dipped low, casting long shadows across the houses. My stomach twisted as I pulled into the driveway. Mark's SUV was already there, gleaming under the streetlight like a polished thread. I barely made it inside before he called out, "Emily, we need to talk." His tone wasn't angry. Worse, it was calm, controlled, like he'd rehearsed every word. I stepped into the living room. He stood by the mantel, hands clasped behind his back, eyes sharp with something colder than grief. "I saw that you went through your mother's things," he said. My chest tightened. "You went through her safe?" I swallowed. "She left something for me." "That safe is private property," he said, his voice tightening just slightly. "You shouldn't have touched it. It had my name on it." Something flickered in his expression, annoyance, maybe even panic, quickly smoothed over. "What exactly did you take?" I held his gaze. "Nothing that belongs to you." For the first time since Mom died, the mask cracked. Just a little. A tightening of his jaw. A narrowing of his eyes. "Emily," he said slowly, "you're young, you're grieving. You're not thinking clearly. Your mother trusted me to manage things. She didn't want you drowning in responsibility. Or did she not want me questioning you?" I shot back. He stilled. A beat. A breath, a quiet warning in the silence between us. Then he said, "You need to stop digging. It will only make things more difficult for both of us." Both of us. As if his comfort and my protection belonged in the same sentence. I stepped back. "I'm not scared of you." He tilted his head slightly. "Maybe you should be." My heartbeat thundered. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," he said, voice dropping low, "that some truths are more dangerous than lies. And if you keep pushing, you'll regret it." My hands curled into fists. "You don't get to threaten me." He gave a quiet, humorless laugh. "I'm not threatening you, Emily. I'm warning you." But the look in his eyes said otherwise. I walked past him, heart pounding, palms sweating, and locked myself in my room. Only then did I hear him mutter something under his breath, something that made my blood run cold. She wasn't supposed to find it. He knew about the letter, the test, the trust, everything. And if he knew, then he was already planning his next move. One I might not see coming in time. I barely slept that night. Every sound in the house felt amplified. The creak of the floorboards, the hum of the fridge, the tick of the hallway clock. Mark moved around for a while, then his door shut. I lay in the dark, replaying his words. "Maybe you should be." He wanted me scared. He wanted me quiet. I spent years smoothing things over, shrinking myself to keep the peace. But that letter in my backpack, that DNA report, the trust I hadn't known existed, those were mine. The next morning, I drove back to the clinic. The receptionist recognized me immediately. "Emily Carter?" she asked. "We just tried calling you." My heart lurched. "Already?" "We rushed it like you requested," she said, handing me a sealed envelope. "The official copy will be mailed, but this is the preliminary report." Outside, the parking lot was quiet. I sat on the curb and broke the seal. It confirmed what Mom's original test had said. My biological father was a man named Daniel Whitaker. What caught my attention wasn't just his name, it was the notation at the bottom. Beneficiary tie confirmed to Whitaker Family Trust. File number 107842. Subject retains primary heir status contingent upon proof of maternal death and DNA confirmation. Primary heir. Heir. Not charity. Not leftover. Heir. If I was the primary heir to a trust, and if that trust bypassed spouses or unrelated guardians, then Mark had no claim to it. No wonder he wanted control of everything else. No wonder he feared me. I took a picture of the report, backed it up, and drove straight to an attorney, not the one Mark had used. I searched for a firm that handled estate disputes and booked the first available consultation. The attorney I met with, Rachel Green, looked to be in her early 40s, sharp eyes, direct questions. I handed her the envelope, Mom's letter, and the photocopy of the original test. She read in silence, her expression tightening in places. Finally, she set the papers down. Emily, she said, I'll be blunt. Your stepfather has no biological tie to you. He has no legal guardianship now that you're an adult. The life insurance and trust your mother mentioned, combined with this Whitaker clause, put you in a strong position. So he can't just take everything? Not legally, no. But he may try. People like this rely on fear and confusion. My throat felt tight. What do I do? First, she said, we secure everything we can in your name. Accounts, insurance, the house deed, anything mentioning you or your mother. Second, we file a notice with the court placing a hold on any transfer of your mother's assets until the trust details are reviewed. And the DNA report? That, she said, tapping the page, is your leverage. It proves your connection to the Whitaker Trust. Do you know who Daniel Whitaker is? I shook my head. Mom never talked about him. Rachel opened her laptop, typed, then turned the screen toward me. Search results showed a man in his late 50s, suit and tie, standing in front of a company logo. Whitaker Logistics Group. Articles about expansions, scholarships, philanthropy, wealth. My chest tightened. You're saying my biological father is well off, she finished. And the trust in your name appears substantial. My guess? Your mother wanted to make sure you never be financially trapped. Your stepfather likely suspected there was money but didn't have details. With you ignorant, he could maneuver quietly. With you informed, she shrugged. He's cornered. The moment he realizes you know this, Rachel said, he may become more aggressive, change locks, try to sell property quickly, paint you as unstable. Has he shown any signs of that yet? I thought of the new locks, the conversation at the table, the threat wrapped in polite words. Yes, I said. He already has. Then we don't wait. We filed today. The next few hours moved in a blur. I signed forms, provided ID, handed over every document I had. Rachel drafted a petition to freeze any transfers of my mother's assets, citing possible undue influence and concealment. She attached the DNA report, Mom's letter, and the trust language. By the time I left, the sun was starting to set. My phone buzzed with confirmation emails. For the first time in weeks, I felt something else. Not peace, power. On the drive home, my hands still shook, but my fear felt different. I wasn't bracing for whatever Mark did next. I was preparing to meet it. When I pulled into the driveway, his SUV was gone. The house looked still. I stepped inside, heart pounding. That was when I saw it. The safe from under my mother's bed, dragged into the middle of the living room floor, and pried open. The safe sat in the center of the living room like a crime scene, metal edges bent where someone had forced it open. Papers were scattered across the rug. Mom's medical files, old receipts, childhood drawings she'd kept. But the envelope she left for me, the one with the DNA report and her letter, was gone. My backpack fell from my shoulder. He knew. He knew exactly what I had. And now he had it too. Before panic could swallow me, the front door opened. Mark stepped inside, his expression unreadable, his posture calm in the way people get right before a storm hits. He closed the door quietly, too quietly. Looking for something? He asked. My voice came out thin. Where is it? He walked past the safe, brushing dust from his sleeve. You should have stayed out of this, Emily. Your mother made choices long before you were old enough to understand them. You broke into her safe. It's my house, he shot back. No, it's not. He froze. I took a breath, not steady, but enough. I file a petition today. Nothing can be sold or transferred, not the house. Not her insurance. Nothing. And the DNA report. His eyes flickered. A crack. You talked to someone. Yes, I said. A lawyer. And she knows everything. A long silence stretched between us, taut like a wire. Then he laughed softly, a sound without warmth. Do you really think a piece of paper changes anything? You're young, emotional. You have no idea how the real world works. Mom left me the DNA report for a reason. She was confused, he snapped. No, I said, stepping forward. She was scared. Of you. For a moment, his face twisted anger, panic, something else he couldn't hide quickly enough. You think I wanted this? He said. You think I wanted to spend years paying bills, managing finances, holding things together while she was falling apart? You didn't pay everything, I said. You made her work extra shifts. You kept me in the dark. And you tried to make sure I wouldn't question you. His jaw tightened. Your mother wasn't strong enough to handle the truth. What truth? I demanded. The room felt heavy. Dust in the air. The smell of metal from the pried open safe. He hesitated, but only for a second. Your father, he said. Daniel Whitaker. I knew who he was before your mother ever admitted it. My heart pounded. What does that have to do with anything? It has everything to do with it. His voice rose, echoing off the walls. Your mother was supposed to file that trust under joint guardianship. She promised she would. But she didn't. I stared, stunned. Because it wasn't yours. No, he said, because she didn't want me to have any control. She wanted him to come back into your life. She wanted you to have a future without me. My blood ran cold. That's why you kept her from filing the DNA update. Mark's lips pressed into a thin line. That trust, he said quietly, could have changed everything. It was enough to secure the house, pay for the care she needed, support us both. But she insisted it was for you alone. And I couldn't let that happen. You tried to take everything because you felt entitled to it, I said. Because you thought being her husband meant you owned her choices. I kept this family afloat, he hissed. You controlled this family. He stepped closer, too close. You're making a mistake, Emily. You can't win this. I stepped back, my voice shaking but steady enough. I already did. He blinked. My attorney filed a freeze on all assets, I said. And the DNA report? I have copies, digital and physical. Even if you destroy the original, it won't change a thing. The air shifted. His confidence wavered finally, fully. You think the Whitakers will welcome you? He said quietly. You think they'll care about some paper trail? You think this trust makes you special? No, I said, but my mother did. And that's enough. His jaw clenched. His fists tightened. For a moment, I honestly didn't know what he would do. But then a loud knock broke through the tension. We both turned. Through the window, I saw 2 officers standing on a porch. My stomach dropped. Mark's face went pale. I hadn't called them, but Rachel had. She warned me that if someone had already tried to tamper with property connected to the estate, law enforcement needed to document it. The door opened. Mark tried to speak first, but the officer raised a hand. Sir, we received a report of possible interference with estate property. We need to ask you a few questions. Mark's eyes cut to me, sharp, betraying nothing and everything. You did this, he whispered. No, I said softly. You did. The officer stepped inside, asked him to accompany them outside. He didn't fight, but the fury in his eyes as he walked away burned like a promise he couldn't fulfill anymore. When the door shut behind them, the house fell silent. I stood alone in the living room, surrounded by the scattered remains of what my mother left behind. And I finally let myself breathe. Weeks passed. The court froze every asset in my mother's name. The DNA report was authenticated. The Whitaker trust attorney contacted me, confirming what Rachel suspected: the trust was large, untouched, and legally mine. Mark tried to contest it. He failed. In the end, the truth didn't just protect me, it freed me. I visit Mom's grave every Sunday now. I bring flowers. I sit on the cool grass. And I tell her the things she feared she wouldn't live to hear. I'm okay, Mom. I'm finally okay. Because family should be love, not control. And I learned that sometimes the truth doesn't break you, it saves you.